Salutations again to another episode of Primetime Esports. This week is going to be a rather speedy episode, and we will actually be keeping a timer to keep us on track as we blaze the trail through the most important highlights of Week 3 of the LCS. But first, we're going to look at the standings after Week 3. In North America, Cloud9 sits king atop the throne with a 6-0 record. But hot on their heels is FlyQuest and TSM. Holding firm at the 4th spot is an extremely solid-looking Phoenix One, followed by a 4-way tie for 5th. And then at the bottom of the table, Dignitas and Team Envy sit in relegation dungeon. Or back to the desk again. Gentlemen, first of all, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Fantastic.
All right, we're going to go to NA first since we just ran down through the NA stuff. It's looking really, really good for Cloud9 right now, and it doesn't look like right now there's anyone who can beat them. Am I alone in this line of thinking?
No, you're not alone, but I think that teams like Phoenix One, FlyQuest, and TSM have all shown potential. The only outlier of those three is FlyQuest right now. FlyQuest hasn't really played anyone too great towards the top of the table. They've taken some victories off lower tier teams, and they've looked good while doing it, but we're going to have to wait until they play that tougher strength of schedule to really see how good they are.
I sort of agree with Andy in some ways as far as like FlyQuest and possibly TSM. P1 looks really good. I don't know if the counter matchup between them and C9 would fall in P1's favor, but I do feel like a lot of the other teams that didn't start off so solidly are catching up.
Now, let's focus on Dignitas for a quick second here. The team started off looking strong, even through Week 2 and somewhat Week 3 when they got losses, but now it just seems like they've taken a turn for the worse. Why do you think that is?
I think they started off looking strong because the competition was weak, and so there was a lot of they weren't the only team that was having issues, so a lot of it was skill-based, and they do have a lot of talent on their roster. You can't deny that. But one thing that they are lacking is they're only able to play through Someday and Chaser, and right now it's just not working. Their bot lane is just going even or losing, and so is Keen. And they've tried everything with Someday. Excuse me. They tried putting him on tanks, tried putting him on Fiora, and they're not getting the results.
Yeah. So, as far as what was the question again for that team? I'm sorry.
Why Dignitas isn't clicking?
Okay, so basically, Dig is an anomaly to me. I mean, that team, honestly, I watched their first couple of games because I looked at the roster like everyone else and thought, these guys are going to be really good. They put together really strong players individually, but it's sort of a tragedy that what's been happening to them because as far as their macro is considered, first week they tried to sort of snowball Looper and try to really get him ahead. Someday, excuse me. And so when that didn't work, they started to try to snowball other lanes to see who could be the main carry on the team. And so far, they haven't found very good results.
We're going to move from one struggling team to the next. I just want to spend a quick second on Team Liquid because this team, not as strong as Dignitas, but they came in looking like they might be able to hold a 4th, 5th spot, and now they're sitting tied in that 5th spot. And it doesn't look like anything's going over them. It's a train wreck, even without Dardoch. Let's focus a little bit on the players. Golden Glue in particular, why do you think he's underperforming someone, Andy?
Well, I think obviously he's not as good as some of the other NA mids, but I don't think that he deserves all the flack that he's getting. I think that if TL has a shining light, it's their coach, David Lim. He's a really good drafting mind, but I think he's really struggling because I can't remember the last game they played where they didn't get 2v2 killed. So really the whole team is showing a lot of weaknesses, except for maybe Lorlo, but even he's not looking too good.
I think Lorlo has looked pretty solid. He's probably the most well-performing player on the team right now, in my opinion. But as far as the other members, they're really lacking some team cohesion, which is surprising to me because Matt and Piglet should be able to work together well, given their history in the bot lane. They've had a lot of time to sort of get used to each other.
Yeah, and if you remember last spring, they played a bunch of Kalista Thresh, and they just 2v2 destroyed everyone.
Yeah, they went off.
And you brought up Rainover earlier. I feel like personally, like it's hard for Rainover to get what he needs to get done to help this team because in most of these games, it seems like all 3 lanes are losing.
Well, you could say that, and there is some validity to that, but he also can't play the meta right now. He can't play the Kazakhs, and he's not a phenomenal Rengar. So teams are fine trading either one of those champions. He hasn't shown any dominance on Ivern either, so he really needs to step up and adapt his jungle pool if they want to become a top-tier team.
All very interesting conversation, gentlemen. But we're going to move on to the schedule for North America, and this is how it looks this week as follows. On Friday, C9 will look to stay undefeated as they take on Team Liquid. Then immediately following that match will be a showdown between Teetering Immortals and last place Dignitas. Saturday, we'll have some excitement as CLG looks to break out of the tie for 5th with Echo Fox, while Phoenix One will try and take out FlyQuest and break into the top 3. And then finally on Sunday, we will see the most high-profile match of the weekend as FlyQuest takes on Cloud9 in the battle of old versus new, white versus blue. Now, we're going to move on to Europe already, where nothing has really changed as far as standings are considered. In Group A, G2 still stands on top, followed by Misfits and Fnatic, with Giants and Roccat sitting at the bottom of the barrel. In Group B, an impressive-looking UOL holds firm at 4-0, with H2K not far behind at 3-1, then Splice coming in at 2-2 in third after a tough loss to UOL that went to 3 games. Sitting in the Group B basement as well is Team Vitality at 1-3 and Orihin with the biggest donut in the win column. Gentlemen, we're going to bring it back to the desk, but we're not even really going to focus that much on records. It kind of is what it is right now. We understand G2 and UOL are kind of showing out as the top 2 in their tier and no one's coming anywhere near close to them. But the question is, how will this crossplay coming in the week 4 affect these standings? We've already seen G2 barely come back against H2K earlier today. I think we saw another. Did we see? We saw Giants take on UOL, and UOL completely demolished them. What do you think crossplay is going to do for the next 3 weeks to the regions and how they work?
You want to take
So basically, as far as the crossplay thing is considered, I think it's a great idea. And it's certainly much more interesting to see as a spectator. You sort of look at these teams that H2K and G2, for instance, which were top of the table for both categories, and their head-to-head was a little bit lackluster, but in some ways it was sort of expected as far as what you were going to get with those 2 teams. And as for Giants and UOL, that was very unexpected in that it was a complete stomp. Like what you were mentioning with...
Did you expect Giants to win?
I did not, but actually, well, the second game was sort of closer than the first, but still, it was still very clear who was a favorite out of those 2, so...
I'm going to go ahead and pose the question right now. We're going to leave that behind. I'm going to pose the question. Between these 2 top teams, G2 and UOL, we'll see them actually play in week 5. Who do you think is going to take it home? Right now, G2 is looking more, their strength is more in their coordination, while UOL looks like just raw power and their ability to turn these unique fights around and their solidity in pick and ban.
See, you think I'm a UOL hater, but I'm actually going to say UOL. But I'm really hesitant to do so, right? Because the only thing is, UOL is a very individually talented team, and they obviously know macro at a relatively good level. But one thing that they struggle for is they always go too far. They're always pushing. If you watch their match today, they're always pushing the limit. They tried to give Giants. They were like, Giants, please play like a moderately decent team and you can win this game. And Giants was like, no. So I don't know. I think that UOL, if they play against a solid team, do I think G2 is a solid team? No. So I think UOL is going to smash them. But I think that once they start playing good teams, if they played international competition, they would struggle by overreaching and getting punished by good Korean teams, by maybe Cloud9, but nobody really else from an A.
I think I want to go. My heart wants to go with UOL, but I think you're wrong with the fact that G2 is not a solid team right now. If you watched the matches earlier this morning with Origin versus H2K, quite literally the first game, G2 won by getting a single kill on Odoamne in the bottom lane with Camille split push. And then the rest of the time they just ran H2K around the map using great vision control. They know what they want to do when going into matches. They're extremely coordinated. UOL, on the other hand, not as coordinated, but they have this knack for turning those 30-70 fights their favor. Like you said, they do have at least a good enough grasp on macro play to challenge G2. And it's going to be close, and I think I'm going to slightly agree with you 2-1. I just think UOL is going to pill something out that G2 won't be able to counterpunch with. Mohammed, what do you think?
I feel like G2 has been looking more and more solid as the weeks go on. Their record doesn't really indicate how their performance has been, which has been shaky. The teams that they've been playing against haven't really been super top tier, highest level teams, especially performance-wise. So going into that matchup, I feel like regardless who's going to win, the series is going to be 2-1. But I do lean more in favor of G2 just because they've been looking better with each consecutive week.
So we got 2-1 in favor of UOL. Hopefully Mohammed's not right. But just before we move out of Europe, I want to ask a little bit of a prop bet to you, gentlemen, as we have the two worst teams in probably the Western region as a whole facing each other in Origen versus Roccat, both at 0-4 at the bottom of their tables, both looking like complete dumpster fires. But I want to know who you guys think is going to win that matchup.
It's Giants versus Roccat, right? But when you mention horrible teams, or either way, Origen's worth mentioning, right? Let's just run down the list of why these teams are just so awful, because it really is. It's painful
Please
to know that
enlighten
these
me.
people are professionals. The only one of these people that deserves to be paid is Wadid. He is the only one. He is a good player.
He's going rogue here.
Hustlin, if you watch the Giants series today, Hustlin and Knight do not deserve to be on a professional roster. Knight was TPing bot lane a zillion and flashed to cancel his TP. Like,
Let's say given the performance, given their current performance.
Okay, given their performance, I'm going to go Roccat because they have my boy Maxlor. He's a good player. Wadid is good. Betsy is okay. But I do actually, in all seriousness, I do actually think that Maxlor and Wadid are pretty good players, and that they're really they're on a bad team, so I expect those two to be able to carry.
It is indeed OG versus Roccat. Giants and Roccat played earlier
You're right.
already
My
this
bad,
season.
my bad.
That was a complete clown fiesta.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Origin just for my boy Nahun. He has no professional wins so far from LSPL
I wonder
to
why.
now.
I wonder why.
And I want the man to get a win so that his spirit can drift off. And when they're done winning, his chair is he's gonna disappear out of his chair. He's gonna fade away because he's finally able to die in peace because he wins. But Mohammed, I want to get your opinion on this. We're not gonna leave you out, buddy.
Okay, so I'm gonna be honest. Out of these two teams, I have watched neither team play. Not really paying attention to either of them because they...
Not in a position to comment. Not in a position.
All I'm going to say about both of them is that we're going to have a series where both teams underperform according to the standards of EU LCS. And regardless of winner, it won't really matter. They'll both still be bottom of the table. But I'll say, just to give a vote, I'll say Origen will win. But it will be another 2-1 series because neither team are good enough to take the other.
I want to take this time to also give a shout out to yet another disappointing EU LCS player, Hachani.
Is this a roast or something?
No, Hachani deserves all of the flack that he gets. This guy is like Keith, I'm dead at the start of another team fight, McBrief. This Hachani has died.
He got benched recently, didn't he?
Hachani?
Yeah, he's been benched.
Good,
by
he
Vital.
deserves to. I haven't seen
so.
that post, but if so, then he deserves it.
Yes. They have no real sub lined up, but he was so bad that they just benched him.
I mean, if you watched last week, it was awful.
Yeah, I do not like Mohammed throwing shade at EU LCS as a whole, but that's a completely other discussion for another time. We're going to move on. First of all, we're going to go through the schedule coming up for Friday, Saturday. As you know, Thursday's games obviously already have been played. And as we said before, if you watch, Unicorns dismantle Giants And an extremely tight match between G2 and HCK saw the gentlemen from G2 take the series 2-1. But we don't make graphics for Thursday, so let's move on and look ahead to Friday's games. The next highest profile match in Europe will be the Splice Boys versus Misfits, followed by Fnatic looking to break their even record over the heads of Vitality. Then Sunday won't be as exciting as it will see HUK take on Roccat and G2 looking to rickroll Orient, as we know. But now we're going to look and take a big picture at League Esports as sweeping changes have been introduced to MSI and Worlds. Let's go to me for more on the subject. Me, take it away. Earlier this week, Riot announced sweeping changes coming to MSI and the Worlds 2017 formats. The mid-season invitational will now be a 13-team tournament, hosting teams from all 13 League of Legends professional leagues. Seeding for the event will be based on previous results as far back as the 2015 season, including spring results for 2017. What's new? The play-in stage, where teams from 10 regions will play through 3 rounds to determine who goes on to the group stage. The results will still have implications on Worlds seeding. Worlds has also been updated to be a 24-team tournament with a similar format to MSI, meaning there will be a play-in stage before the group stage. The biggest difference is that the LMS has now been granted a 3rd seed. There will be no IWC tournaments, and Korean seeds will not participate in the play-in stage. Back to me on the desk. Thank you, Me, for that compelling explanation. Now, gentlemen, we're going to go and kind of break this down. It was a little convoluted, but let's look at the impact this has on the way we'll see playoffs happen from now. Worlds. First of all, how do you think the new format will impact competition? Now that there is no IWC tournament, we will see some of those teams that didn't get to make it in, like Detonation, Focus Me from Japan. Some of these better, more lauded teams that just happen to lose, unfortunately, in the international wildcard tournament. Now they'll have a chance to play without that barrier.
I'm excited for a couple of reasons. A, NA is less likely to get eliminated early in the tournament, so we can say we went one round further. And then B, I think it's great that they finally gave the LMS their 3rd seed. It's about time. I saw a tweet that said, congratulations, Riot, for realizing the LMS has more titles than EU and NA combined. And then C, I think it's going to be really exciting because all these teams that we might not necessarily get to watch on a broadcast now get that opportunity to go to Worlds, and it'll just overall make the competition and the community feel, the diversity of it, a lot better.
We might actually get to see, like you said, the LMS 3rd seed, see a team like J-Team, who was the top of LMS for the entire year and then just faltered in the qualifier tournament. Mahmoud, how do you think this will affect it in terms of just, like Andy said, NA won't get knocked out as far, but in reality, does this benefit Western regions as a whole?
I feel, well, first, to answer the first question, I think it does benefit the West more so NA, because I feel like we as a region have a chance to prove whether we deserve to move on or not. But as far as the competition itself, I feel like it poses an even more important fact in that MSI and Worlds will appear to be a much more international and much more diverse competition, especially to spectators who don't get to see teams like Detonation, Focus Me play on the main stage. So MSI will be much more holistic, Worlds will be more holistic, and it will also take a greater measure of skill for those teams.
Now, do you think the play-in bracket format is viable for this situation, or should they have just kind of expanded group stage to a, I don't know what else they could have done, but you think play-in stage is good for this? And then the rope-in, also our final question, do you think lengthening the tournament as a whole is good or bad? Because, fatigue, and also how many fans can hold their attention span for an additional 2 or 3 weeks or however long this will last?
Yeah,
I can. Honestly, during Worlds, I'm just so giddy every day I wake up and I'm like, what team's gonna play today? It's like when the NBA Finals and Euro tournament overlap over the summer every 2 years. It's the best. But I do think the play-in tournament is good. I think Riot acknowledges that there's obviously a skill disparity between the regions, and that Korea is, for some reason they lump in Korea with NA and EU. That's just homers. But then they acknowledge that there is a difference between the wildcard regions and the rest of the world for now. So I think that's a good thing.
Well, I don't know about homership, because at MSI, NA has to play through the play-in just like everybody else.
Good. Okay, then I
MSI
stand
being the
corrected on
exception,
MSI, but
yeah.
on Worlds it's different, right?
Yeah, true. It is
There-
Worlds.
There was a caveat to the graphic for explaining Worlds that said the #1 seed from MSI gets, I think it's like 4 slots in the Worlds bracket. But those teams that they were using to determine that were like LPL, LMS, Brazil, Oceania, other regions. They didn't mention NA, which starts in the same group. So I'm wondering if NA gets first at MSI out of some, miracle, do they actually get that slot into the Worlds bracket?
I think so. I think the bracket, the thing they showed us for the implication was just an example. It was not set in stone that these regions will, but NA is left out because we hate NA. Because how could Riot hate NA? We all know the bias is there. Let's
Yeah,
not
but
deny
it just brings up some small semantics questions that we're just going to have to see how Riot does it, especially for how they're going to run the play-in. Is it going to be on the main stage? Are they going to broadcast it? All of that stuff.
Right.
So.
Riot has had troubles explaining things to the general populace before. But, I think that will be all from us today. Be sure to follow us on Facebook at PrimeTime Esports, Twitter at PT Esports with a Z, and subscribe to our YouTube at GSTV Primetime Sports, and that is also with a Z. From all of us, enjoy your LCS weekend, and we'll see you next time.